Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode, to another class. I wanted to continue our discussion into the interference and the ways in which the Archons, the Watchers, the inorganic being, vertical, the adversary, whatever name you want to call them, all attached to us in ways that we are not completely aware of. The Gnostic writing from the Dead Sea Scrolls, half of that writing is about how to recognize them. They sometimes describe them as reptilian-like being, other time as they're so inserted into our being that we can't even detect their presence. They're so mirrored. It's like they're like a shadow. They're completely immersed into our being in every cell, every part of our body that we don't know who they are and what they are. And this would make sense as a description to me, since they interfered originally with our bloodline. In Genesis chapter 5, the genealogy, which we hear about the patriarch of the Bible, so and so begot this one, begot that one, begot that one, and there is a whole hierarchy of the number of years that they lived. This one lived to be 500, that one 750, that one 910, that one begot this two sons, one at 110, and so on and so forth. And it's a beautiful thing. And you would think you're reading a myth, but according to all the Kabbalists and the teachers I've studied with, they all said this was the actual age. This was prior to genetic interference, because the next chapter, chapter 6, talks about the sons of men, the sons of God, who are the angel, the watchers, or the inorganic being, who were at the top of Mount Haran and created to protect and watch over men. And they fell in love because the progeny of Adam and Eve end up being from very beautiful women. And they felt, according to the chapter, to the beginning of the chapter, they fell in love with them and they tried to marry them by becoming human. Something that they were not permitted to do. They were immortal celestial beings, and they are from a different species, and they were not permitted to crossbreed, right? And they did it nonetheless. And in the process of doing this, they ended up having their own progeny, which ended up being the rest of humanity. And that progeny ended up being altered genetically because of the two strain of DNA, human and celestial. And they created 3 types of offspring. The mighty men that were giants, similar to Goliath from the Bible, Goliath and David. The Nephilim, which were the giants, and then the mighty men that were like Samson, Hercules, very strong, and physically strong, impossibly strong. And then the third type would be what they call the men of renown, which were really immortal beings. These beings would live to be very, very ancient. And in fact, they were so old, some of them, because they inherited the celestial immortality and they had physical immortality, meaning that by disease, by old age, by normal means, they cannot die. If you cut off their head, I'm sure they will die, but by any other means, they cannot die. And to the rest of the human race, they became the gods of ancient times, the pagan gods. And I'm trying to explain this in a way so that we can put a pause on it and slow it down, so that we can understand what we're dealing with, giving the fact that they're agitating us now. We need to revisit this material to give ourselves a better understanding of what we're dealing with, a good reminder, a good refresher. So these beings are extremely ancient, extremely knowledgeable, after all, they're celestial being. And it wasn't just the sin of crossbreeding, meaning genetically altering the genetic destiny, that the purpose that God had created us for. God knows what would have happened if we were directly descended from Noah, Methuselah, and all these other older patriarchs, Seth, and et cetera, without interference. God knows where we would be today. But given the fact that this happened, our genetic got altered. So from being able to live almost 1,000 years, between 900 to 700 years on average, we ended up now dying around the time of the Bible, less than 50 years. And so it was not their only sin. The other thing that they were doing is that they were interfering. They were bringing to us what was at the time called forbidden knowledge, insight, understanding, truth, advanced science, magical science, astronomy, astrology. You have to remember at the time, the human race just came out of the Garden of Eden. So we are grounded into 3D for the first time. And we were emotionally not mature enough to handle certain kind of information. The art of war and battle, the creation of weapon, all of this information, sorcery, magic, all of that information they brought with them, and they begin now to whisper, because they're genetically merged now with us, they're inside of us. So when I'm talking about Archon, I don't want you to just think that it's a shadow that exists outside of you. I want you to understand that it's something that's immersed in your bloodstream. It's in there, because that's the way you end up with 2 strands of DNA. I want you to understand exactly what I'm talking about. So, and don't freak out. I'm saying this, I don't want you to start going, ew, and try to wash yourself with borax or Aesop, okay? I want you to understand what I'm trying to say, because we have to talk plainly. So, they've interfered, they're there. And what they do is that they work in the shadow. The story that I want to recount, and I talked about this last week, was the story of, in the Gnostic Bible, there's a story of Eve, where she, Marjorie was having a problem with the phone. That might be on the phone. Give me a minute. Yeah. Okay, give me a minute. I have to send her the link.
And Pierre, did you turn on the recorder?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. So I don't want you to think that this watch, that they're outside of you or some separate thing, and they're whispering in your ear. They're inside of you. They know you better than you know yourself. They know every weakness that you have. They know everything that's going on inside of you, and they're there monitoring, and they're trying to interfere. So the story in the Gnostic Bible talks about the fact that Eve, who was at the time when she got out, who at the time that she got out was of the Garden of Eden, was still 5D. and one of the Archons came to her, trying in the appearance and the visage of a handsome man trying to copulate with her or making advances toward her. And she then said to, realizing this, she created an illusion because she was still 5D. She created an illusion, and that illusion that she projected out, she watched this Archon trying to copulate with literally nothing. And she was laughing on the side and ridiculing the being for being so gullible. But they got onto this very quickly, and they realized that the only way for them to be effective is that they begin to create, because we were not in the garden where everything was given. Men had to figure out a way in 3D to exist and connect to the grounding of and the five senses were new to us. They begin to create catastrophic event, which they had the power to do because they were celestial beings. Like storm, lightning, flood, created things around them that cause human being to go into fear. And when you go into fear, what happens? You go immediately into survival. And that survival grounds you in the 3D. And the moment that happens, you lose your 5D connection. You drop from your 5D to 4D into 3D because you're scanning, you're monitoring, you're afraid, you're trying to control, you're trying to figure out resources because you think you're going to die. And the moment that happens, you're no longer in 5D, you cannot see them anymore, and they can now copulate with human female and interfere with the bloodline. And I wanted you to understand this because I want you to realize that there are similarities, for example, today with all of the world events that are happening around us. I'm in a hurricane in the Caribbean right now, too many to recount, okay? So, hold on, let me send this text. So I want you to understand what I'm talking about, that there are very similar things that are happening right now. The possibility exists for us to enter into all of the higher dimensions. All the higher gates are overlapping each other and they are right on top of each other. But we also have catastrophic events. I'm not saying it's the Archon that's creating them. What the Archon are doing is that they are influencing how we interpret them. But these events, let's say the climate change event, are the direct result of prior influence from the Archons since the Industrial Revolution for 2 centuries now. We've been derailing, we've been poisoning the planet, we've been doing all kinds of, we're following greed and money, again, influenced by them. Because I want to focus tonight a little bit more on how that influence occurs, because I want you to be aware, deeply aware when it is happening. Okay, let's zoom in onto this. It does not feel like a voice that's talking to you most of the time. It's not what it feels like. Okay, because if it was a voice that was talking to you, you would surely know that this is not me. I got to push it back. This is not what it is. They're too clever. Do not underestimate them. Do not underestimate them. They show up as if it was a gut feeling, a genuine gut feeling to tell you to flee and to run or to be afraid of this. And it's usually connected to a fear. This is the key. It's always, if it's the Archon influence, it's going to be an inflation of a fear. It's never about something positive. It's never about something where you feel fantastic and you feel great and everything is wonderful. It's going to be the exact opposite. It's going to be influencing you to experience a major fear of some kind, but it's going to give you the sensation that that fear and that panic that you're feeling is innately justified, and it is in you, and you're in terrible danger. And at the moment, weeks, months, etc., that you're experiencing this, no one in the world, not even God, can tell you that that experience is not true. Because to you, it's your truth. I hope I'm making myself clear. It's typically not about a powerful kind of like release or sense that, you know, I'm surrendered and I feel the blessings of the universe and the blessings of God. That's not what it is. It's typically about, you have to fear this, you have to fear these people, you have to fear this experience, you have to run, you have to, you know, it's always about a fear. But the fear and the unrest and what it does over time, particularly, and it's going to gnaw at your consciousness, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger every day. It's going to start like a little influence at first, and then it's going to get bigger the next day, bigger, to the point that you're not going to be able to sleep, you're going to feel agitated, you're going to feel unrest, and you're going to be irritable to everyone around you, you're going to be uneasy. Basically, they're going to rob you of your peace. But to you, in your gut, it's going to feel like it's a genuine feeling, and what I'm feeling is God trying to warn me that something is wrong. This is how clever that they are. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. I hope you're really understanding where I'm getting at, that they are smart enough to slowly and incrementally increase the volume to the point, again, their power is corruption. The way the Gnostic Bible described what they're doing, they call it simulacrum. They may look like human, they may appear as that or the other, but they cannot create anything new, but they can corrupt everything. They can corrupt it and corrupt it. And if you're not smart enough to catch it, you're going to think that it is genuine and this is coming from you. So that's what I'm trying to make you understand. I'm trying to give you an insight into. Yes, Marjorie. Yes, Marjorie. I know you went through this big time. And I did too. And we all have had those experiences where, particularly since the pandemic, since the beginning of 2020, all of us have gone through a moment where, because we've all grieved, we've all lost, and we all had to be pushed into survival. Because the key to it is that they have to put us into survival. And the moment we're in survival, that they can influence. They can begin to poison our consciousness. The Rosicrucian, when I was part of the Rosicrucian order, they used to call this, they have a whole book that's written about this called mental poisoning. I still have it on my bookshelf. Okay? They poison your consciousness and make you actually believe that genuinely this is in your gut and it is coming from you, and your fear and what it is that you're experiencing is actually justified. And no one on the planet, as I said, not even God, can tell you differently. It takes enough training for you to realize. And for me, I don't catch it initially quickly, but over time, I begin to realize that when I wake up in the morning, I have a certain, I'm not perfect, I'm still a work in progress, but there is a certain level of peace and calm that I have. And when I spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks where I'm not in that calm, in that peace, then I know something is wrong. I've had that conversation with my family where I've said, I am not at peace. I am not at peace. Something is wrong. And when I repeat this and I say this, it's because I'm being influenced somewhere. and I need to find the source of the toxicity and the poison. And for that to occur and for me to kind of like find it and hold myself, you have to understand the nature of these beings too. They were originally created to serve us. This was their, of course, they emancipated beyond that. They're doing something else, they're interfering. But the wiring to obey us is still in there. Okay? It's still in there. It's a fundamental wiring. And there's a reason why I'm saying this, because when you begin to, if you, for whatever reason, you awake, and for me, the way I awaken, it's because I knew prior to these gut feeling idea and thoughts coming into me, I was at peace. I was experiencing bliss on a daily basis. Not all the time, but for several hours at a time. I could feel like almost like a flashlight above me. And all of a sudden, I'm in this patch where I am jumping out of my skin. Everything is making me on edge, and I'm agitated. I am uncomfortable. I am irritable. I am afraid of everything. I'm ducking emotionally at everything that's happening. Is causing me to go into panic. And when that begins to occur, I know I'm being influenced because I'm not at peace. Now, part of it, as I said, that initiated this for me in the past, recent past, it's because as a spiritual teacher, everybody is sending me all kind of crazy videos and about all kind of conspiracy theory, about fear theory, about all kinds of things that are happening around the planet that could have a cabal or some sort of interference related to it, poisoning the planet and whatever, interfering with our DNA, doing all kinds of shenanigans. Now, I'm not saying that these videos are wrong. What I'm saying is that part of what they're saying may be true, but what it does to me, as I watch one after the other in a series, it begins to agitate me. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. The killing of the president in Haiti. As you know, I'm originally from there. When I started watching videos related to the killing, I remember there were certain videos where they actually show pictures of him with of his body, with his eyes, bullet in his eyes and his head. I can't watch this because this image is never going to go out of my head. Or the report as to who's responsible. Every day there's 7 or 8 different channels that are putting stuff out, supposition. Literally within less than 5 to 6 days, I'm back again in the same agitation. I'm not at peace. I had to make a choice and say, I'm not watching any more of this. I'm not watching it because the peace and the connection I had to God is completely gone. And I'm now in a panic mode. I am now agitated. I am paranoid. I am in a completely different space. So watching too much mass media and too much of these things will become agitant. And by the way, the Archons are behind the creation of all of these. They're influencing people to do it because the way the Archons work, part of what they are saying is fundamentally true. And this is in both sides of the bifurcation. Part of what they are saying is absolutely the truth. But it's the spin, the interpretation, and the conclusion that are incorrect, that are there to influence you. So one has to be very careful. You have to be very sharp and very neutral to be able to capture the nuance and know, for example, this is true, from this point forward, all of it is untrue. And this kind of filter, if you're trying to, do this all the time, to a degree, you can achieve some success, but after a while, it just wears you down. And the poison, the mental poison, the fear they're trying to insert, It's like the 21-day program. Anything that you hear that gets repeated to your subconscious mind, 21 days or more becomes a law in your subconscious mind, and you begin to believe it to be true. This is true for anything positive or negative, because the subconscious mind doesn't understand anymore. And even though internally it may create a battle in your subconscious mind where one belief is this way, the other belief is the opposite, and they start clashing and battling internally, creating internal turmoil and chaos for you. It's the way it comes in. This is why you have to make sure that Dr. Stone in the book Revelation of the Melchizedek Initiate was talking about the fact that you have to make everything about God and become completely intoxicated with anything that's related to God and to ascension. And if you're in that state of being, ascension will come because you're programming this to go deep in your subconscious mind. But if you're watching all of these kind of like bizarre interpretation that are fearless, many of them, the interpret, and on both sides, they're filled with interpretation of fear, where this is going. I saw a post on Facebook the other day. Instead of watching things on mass media that are predicting the apocalypse and the end of the world, why don't you go out there and create a new earth? Create goodness, create kindness, which is absolutely true. And if we can exist in a different template, we will cause our consciousness to shift. So what I had to do personally in the several instances since March of 2020, I've had these experiences with the influence of the Archon. I had to actually stop watching mass media, stop watching everything that anyone's selling me. I'm not watching it. More recently, it was about the death of President Jovenel Moïse in Haiti. I just stopped watching it because it was agitated. Because I belong to the group body. I'm Haitian of origin. The stuff was so we are a very old nation. We're the first Black nation to become independent. For an external group of mercenaries to come in and to shoot down our president was something that was hurting our national pride and our sovereignty as a people. And I felt it big time. And there was a sense of we got to find the responsible party. And there were so many conspiracy theories, so many of them, so many interlaced and meshed, and so many stuff that was going on. I got to a point, I'm like, I'm not watching any more of this. I'm not watching because it's causing me to lose my complete peace and my serenity. When I wake up in the morning, instead of feeling my alignment to God, I am sideways, I'm tilted to the side. My axis is not in my center. And it takes me, days. It took me days to bring it back to the center to find an alignment again. So when I'm hearing and feeling and sensing all of these things, I have to make sure that I begin to shift and move things so that first, whatever external influence that is letting, whether it's things that I'm reading, videos that I'm watching, whether it is conversation that I'm having, I need to cut them out. Cut them out because I'm not at peace. Okay? If somebody is the source of the infection, the Archons are unconsciously using them and filtering that information to get to me, I'm not at peace. Therefore, I have to block them out. And then I have to do the work of surrender, because this adjutant, this information, stirred up and revealed to me, this is the gift now. It's not all negative because there's a gift there. Whatever it is that they stirred up in me, like emotionally, that caused me to lose my peace, this is a weakness in my spiritual psychology. So it's revealing in me a weakness that I didn't know was there, right? And so I have to figure out how to correct this weakness. And so what I do then is that I look at the weakness and the vulnerability, the fear that I have, and I begin to say to myself, what's the root cause of this fear? And if there's more than one root cause, it might be root causes, rather. What are the root causes of this fear? And if there's more than one of them, I examine them, I realize what they are and where they're located in my body, if they're connected to some part of my body, or is it out there in energetic space around me? And then once that is done, then I take a very deep breath and I ask Source, I surrender it by repeating over and over again. I release all attachments, fear, and control. Because typically speaking, that weakness in my spiritual psychology is a vulnerability. It's typically related to survival, and it's typically a sense that we've lost control. In the case of the president of Haiti, as a nation, we lost control. This is a humiliation internationally. This is us looking unsovereign as a people. It's a weakness. I feel vulnerable. I feel like we've lost control. Okay? And that loss of control is the vulnerability. So when I say, as I'm doing my universal breath, I release all attachment, fears, and control, I'm thinking exactly about the specific of what's causing me not to be at peace at the moment. And as I take the deep breath, I move that energy wherever it's located, if it's in my body or energetically around me, I move it and I release all attachment, fears, and control, and I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. And I release it and I let it go. I let it go completely. And I repeat it several times, sometimes 12 breaths, sometimes it's less than 12, but at a bunch, I'll do at least 12. Sometime by the 7th or the 8th one, I can feel that whatever that it is, whatever imprint or energy signature that this stuck energy, the sphere had, is dislodged. Okay. Now, this is one way to deal with this. And I do actually do both. The second way to deal with this is for me to actually, wherever I feel energetically that, let's say, the imprint, the lack of sovereignty of us to use the example I'm using right now, the loss of sovereignty of us as a Haitian people, to have had this happen to us, etc., wherever I find it lodged in my body or connected to me, physically or energetically, what I have to say to the Archons that are influencing me, because you have to understand, it's not that the feeling is not there. It is part of my spiritual psychology, but it's a small percentage, maybe 15 to 20%. But how I'm reacting, how I'm like, losing it, foaming at the mouth, head spinning like the exorcist, that reaction is an inflation. So the 20%, I have to surrender it into source, to ask for it to be corrected. I release all attachment, fear, and control, and I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity. But the Archon part, the 80%, I have to do something else with it. Now, in the book of Enoch, when Archangel Michael, when the Archon began to create too much mess by the interference, this is right after the stepping out of the Garden of Eden, and souls were being presented at the gate of heaven that were not supposed to have died for another 700-800 years, because they had, again, genetically, things were being altered by these beings. That Archangel Michael went to God, to the throne room, and asked God, what are we going to do? these souls are presenting themselves, they need justice. And it was at that time that God said to Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael to go, and they all had slightly different mission. Raphael was to correct the mistake and bind Archangel, the fallen angel, Azazel. And he was the one that taught humanity war, battle, and all kind of destruction. To the Archangel Gabriel, he assigned the correction and the extraction of the Archon influence to all human beings, and to unroot their interference and take it all out. And he asked Archangel Michael as well to go in and to bind all of these Archons and all of their followers into the deepest bowel of the earth and to bury them until the judgment, all 70 generation. 70 generation. Now I ask, when I begin to perceive the part that belongs to the Archon that I'm being interfered with, I then ask, I call these archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, to come in and to extract from me as commanded by God the inflation of my emotional body and the influence of these archons as it relates specifically to the fear that I'm experiencing right now. Now, when you do this, before I do this, before I do this, before I even call the archangel, I go first and I confront them. Because one of the things you need to understand about these beings, their work and their power is in camouflage and shadow. That's their power. And so what I do, let's say I feel it's in the upper shoulder that I'm feeling the interference. I close my eyes, I sense the energy, I see where it's attached, and I basically have a conversation with that sensation by saying to it, I see you, not with anger, but with sovereignty. I see you, and I have my eyes fixed on you. And you have no permission to be in my body. Those are the three things that I decree. I don't just command it, I decree it. And then I do the breath. I call Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and I ask them to come in and to extract their influence and take them out of my body as additional help to help expedite their exit. I hope I'm making sense. And please, if you have any questions or comments, stop me if you want me to repeat anything, because I'm giving you a lot of material. It's a quick review. So if you have any questions, let me know. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Have you had any experiences that are similar?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to answer your question that yes, sounds very familiar. And I personally, I am using it a lot. It's sometimes more, sometimes less. But I also found that it sometimes is connected to major events. But sometimes that might trigger something new in you. Like, for example, when my mother passed away, it triggered a big grief. related that showed up for me. And sometimes it's also related if we get like a major upgrade, because that brings the shadows out as well. So I use it frequently, not every day, but when I feel these major shifts, usually I find it. I use it. The way I use it, I kind of try to also manage it throughout the day, because I don't want to be. It's kind of like until the until you resolve the root cause, the relief you get is temporary.
Mhm.
So I try to make sure that I kind of do both in a given day as much as possible, and because then it's most effective.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to answer your question. That's all.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you so much. Anybody
Oh,
else?
Pierre, I didn't didn't have quite that experience, but I always know when somebody is trying to just find out what am I doing in my life. And I remember I told you about the young, I was going to say young man, but one of my temple brothers who turned 99,
Yes.
and I was going to go, to the celebration they were giving to him in the temple, and then I was, because I was you know, a little annoyed is that they did not invite me directly, but I heard about it indirectly, and I really like this brother, and I said, well, no one invited me to come. I said, but I really would like to celebrate this gentleman, and then all of a sudden, as much as I was so enthusiastic about going just to let this man know how much I really appreciated, his walk and his help, through the years. I I changed my mind, and when I changed my mind, I didn't change my mind until it was the day that I was supposed to go, and I didn't go. But I did call him, and I told him, how I felt, and we had a wonderful time talking. But anyway, after that, it seems to me like how that always stirs the pot that I'm going to come, and I didn't come. And then all of a sudden, one young lady called up and she told me how much she really admires me, and she wished that she had stood up, for me when this young man was making this terrible attack. And so I said, now why is this coming up? After all this time, why is this coming up? And so I said, the feeling that I had to go, and then the same strong feeling, no, you do not need to go. You can wish him well, by just calling and talking to him and everything and leave it alone. And so that's what I did. I followed, my feeling and did not go. But evidently, I call the young men affected by the Archons because they act that way all the time, and they've been acting that way for several years. You know what I'm talking about, more than
Yep.
several years, but
Yep.
a long period of time. And then this morning, Danielisa was going to go out early to get her hair done, and she said, "Ma, I dreamed about you, and I said I have to tell you these dreams." I said, "Okay, okay." And my daughter can get very excited, when she has these dreams. And she said, "Mom, I saw you had climbed the hill, and you were so far up that hill." She said, "but you was very close to the edge, and I kept telling you, Ma, it's dangerous, it's dangerous. Come down off of that hill." And she said, and then before I could go to help you, she said, I had to battle these two young men. And so I said, okay, here we're starting again. This, how someone could wait and wait and wait, and wait and wait and wait until they think they have an opportunity. You figure the person should have long ago put aside whatever it is that they're upset about, but it comes right back up. And I said, it's the same energy. It's the same energy. So what you're saying is not to be complacent, but to be vigilant also, and to be mindful. And it is advice that is very well, taken, because uh, this these forces that the archons are working with, they never sleep.
Yeah.
They never get tired. They never forget, what their end goal is, and you can get complacent. And so it's good to stop, look, listen, and to continue to fortify yourself with, this light. And when you said, "I see you," I know that works. I know that works, because one night I was sleeping, and all of a sudden my legs were in such pain as I couldn't imagine. And I said, and it woke me up, and I said, "Why is my legs hurting like this?" I mean, they were hurting so bad. It was like all of a sudden I had a toothache. And then I said out loud, "I see you. This is not mine. Be gone." And just like the pain woke me up, it left. And I said, "Wow." Wow. And then I went, back to sleep and rested. So, it's not that you're not taking, the like we don't see in our individual lives different things that come up, because it doesn't necessarily, come up. Well, anything that comes as a surprise anyway, it's not something that you're not looking for at that particular point. But then the person or the energy sees an opportunity, and they try to take the opportunity. But you have to also be just as vigilant. And when that something comes up that is so out of the ordinary, and you say, "Well, okay, I know where that came from," and you call it out, it retreat backwards and forwards. It's like almost like a duet. It's almost like you get to a point, and then you realize, well, something is going to come against you at that point. And I don't know if you remember, I told you I had this dream, and I was climbing up a ladder in this dream.
Yep.
And I was getting near the top, and I know it was a man, because I saw it, but it pushed me, and it pushed me in the dream to push me off the ladder. And when it pushed me, I actually woke up. And I could still feel that push. I mean, I really felt it physically. And I know I was in a dream, but I know that it happened. And so it's like, when I say the old folks, and now I'm one of the old folks, I'm saying, I don't know how I got to be in the place where I call old folks, because I don't see myself there, but I know that that's where I am. It says, the devil's going to go with you right down to the wire. Yep. So you just keep running, because you will run to the wire, and the adversarial force will be right with you, neck to neck. But you cannot stop, because there you have to continue, regardless of it being there, in spite of it being there. So I get you, on that. So you're not whistling in the wind. We do hear you.
Thank you, Celilia. May I offer as well that every time these events happen, even in the circumstances of Daniel's dream and these two young men, it's to understand, because the Archon keeps thinking all the time, it's there to torment you, because their intention is to reverse ascension, to stop you from being elevated and to drain you of energy. Because when you're in fear, you're not sovereign, and they can drain energy from you. But if you can understand that what they're doing you is a service, because when these incidents occur, there is a weakness in your spiritual psychology through which they're entering. And if you can plug that, there is one more place that they cannot interfere the next time.
Right.
And if you keep doing this in your spiritual psychology, in no time, you will ascend. They're actually helping you. If you can capitalize on the opportunity, you can begin to quickly see it, that they're actually helping you. And again, you're right, these fallen ones, which are not coming from the Luciferian fall. These were 200 chief angel, general, and their choirs. They were completely different. It's a very separate segment of the angelic realm, because Lucifer took 1/3 of heaven with him, down with him. These were only, according to the book of Enoch, 200 generals or chiefs with their choir and their followers. So it's a very specific amount, and because 70 generation expired, even though God after that sent the flood, and the flood was an ethnic cleansing, because the Bible used terms all the time, even for Melchizedek, righteous. Righteous in that sense mean 12 strain of DNA, people who have the right connection to God. Okay, that's what the word righteous means. So in mid-chapter 6, God sent Gabriel to tell Noah he's going to send a flood because of Noah and his descendant is righteous. His bloodline was not interfered with. And he was going to redeem and with 2 of every animal. And as he sent the flood to flood the entire planet, there was a story of the flood that was done by, I forgot this actor, Australian actor. He's a little bit of a jerk, but he did a great rendition of it. Because it wasn't just rain for 40 days. It was also water coming from the ground, from every geyser, every aquifer, water shut up. And it flooded the whole the planet. Now, every part in the earth has a major flood recorded in the strata of the earth. Was it all of it happened one at once? I don't know. But if the ancients or the Kabbalists and the spiritual teachers are saying it did happen, and the repopulation occurred, but 70 generations went by, and these beings were released, and they continue their infection till today. Because the story of David and Goliath, who was a Nephilim, happened after that. And we have to be vigilant because they're not sleeping, particularly now with those global events, climate change events. There's a gigantic volcano that's erupting in the Canary Island right now, in La Palma Island. And that volcano potentially could release a tsunami that will reach the entire east coast of the United States. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but studies have been done about this because there's a fault line, and it's where the volcano is, and that's where the volcano is being active, and people are watching and monitoring it. It doesn't look like it's going to happen, but who knows? So there are all these major events that are floating about and that are going around that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's a prediction that's going on out there of a hurricane category 6, possibly 7. I've heard it, somebody else saw it in meditation as well. And when these things happen, what do? They create fear. We want to survive. And if enough of them happen, it begins to make you feel vulnerable and loss of control, and thus the Archon can begin to inflate you into complete blow-up panic. So the way I deal with it, with my part, which is my loss of control, the only person that has the final word is God in my mind. And therefore, when I feel that I'm losing control and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I do my universal breath. I surrender the issue that I'm afraid of with my vulnerability, with my sense of disempowerment to my God. And I give it to God and I ask for help. Help me. Give me some support here. I am afraid. I admit that I am afraid. I humble myself. And the moment you do this and you go into the blessed field with that kind of attitude, the very frequency, vibration, action that you need to take that will remove and nullify not only the fear, but the actual event that's scaring you will come to you. And when it comes to you, you will know what you're supposed to do to overcome, not only survive, but to thrive, giving the experience, the external experience you're having. So the key is that the best way, and I've written about it, I've sent email regarding this to all of you. The key to this is to understand that there is an external adjutant, an accelerant that's been added to the mix. And we are being taken to this process where we need to grow at very fast pace. And I'm seeing all these things as opportunities. But if you don't identify what they are, and you think that the feeling that you're having is all yours, you're screwed. You will not be able to deal with it. It's to acknowledge that a percentage of it is coming from my spiritual psychology. The rest of it is not mine. I'm being influenced by an ancient enemy of humanity. And the part that I cannot deal with is that ancient enemy, but I know who I have people. I know people, I have people. I can call Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. I can ask them to deal with them. I can acknowledge my sovereignty, my power, and go back to them and say, I see you and you cannot do this to me. You're not permitted. And additionally, call upon the archangel to ask them to extract all that stuff out. So when we are going through these transformation and these changes, as I see it, the opportunity, the key to everything that I'm doing now, there are three things I'm monitoring that I'm always trying to make sure that every experience exists with these three filters. When somebody sent something out to me, a video, because there's a lot of stuff going on out there, there's a lot of disclosure, there's a lot of information, and all my students are sending me stuff. I have to use three filters. As I begin to watch this, whatever it is that they're giving me or reading or etc., is this generating fear in me? Filter number one. Filter number two. Is this information or so-called disclosure or insight demonizing a person or a segment of the population? Third, am I being asked to become a militant for the cause? And if all three of these things are true, it's not the entire information is wrong, but the Archons are in it. And I cannot listen to it. I cannot, I'm going to put it on the shelf somewhere else. I'm not dealing with it. It's like you're in the middle of a tornado and there are all this debris and all this stuff that is flying around. And to hold your consciousness in alignment becomes every day more and more complicated. Because again, all of this information is coming in. And the people, friends and family members that I've seen on both sides of the bifurcation were completely lost consumed with rage and anger, thinking that their path and their way of seeing is the right way, and they're completely foaming at the mouth, ready to try to change the world with a giant revolution and battle. On both sides, these people have consumed too much of that stuff. Again, 21 days of that same information over and over again, it seeps into your subconscious mind, it becomes a law, and it's now your truth. If you're not curating the information that you're consuming right now, you're a fool. Because there is enough interference out there to all of a sudden tilt your axis out and make you go somewhere where really you're going to find yourself intellectually, you may have the right idea, but emotionally it's going to take you somewhere else. You're going to find yourself, when the galactic equator crossing happened, you're going to find yourself somewhere else in a different, reality, and you're going to ask yourself, but I don't belong here. How did I get here? You got here because you were not emotionally intelligent enough to catch the nuances. You were not emotionally agile enough to catch quickly what was happening so that you can steer yourself in the right direction. So when I watch and see all the interference, and I'm looking at the dynamic and the flow and etc., here are the things that I have to watch out for. I want to make sure that for most of my day, that I'm in peace. Item number one. For most of my day, I want to make sure that I exist in truth. Item number two. For most of my day, I want to make sure that I live my life authentically. Item number three. So those are the three things that in addition to people sending me information, I talked about the first three criteria that I use to filter out information. It's like taking the information to a sieve, and if it doesn't go through, I'm not going to watch it. Some of that information, I begin to watch it and I put it on pause. I'm like, because it's usually the way it begins for me anyway. The beginning of the information is correct. And at some point, maybe a quarter of the way, maybe 1/3 of the way, I begin to identify the three items. The moment I identify it, I stop watching. I'm done. I'm not watching it anymore because it's the poisoning of my consciousness. And 21 days of this, it will be programmed inside of me and I will have no control over it. Mind your mental hygiene. Mind what you're watching, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and what you're conversing. Mind your mental hygiene. Again, you're going to go somewhere that you don't want to go. You're going to find yourself emotionally because, again, the Archons are behind all of this. They are spreading. I spoke about this the last time. I've watched too many friends of mine now. They're not on my bus. They're somewhere else. People I've channeled with, people whose character I trust. I was talking to my sister Marjorie the other day about somebody that was part of our group, that a dear brother that I love, that I had honored for all of these years. And I'm watching the venomous, the crazy comments that he's putting on mass media. I'm like, who is this man? Any questions, any comments?
Pierre?
Yes.
I do have a question, but I don't think it's pertaining to what we are talking about. But however, you said one word and it triggered something in me. that used to happen in my childhood. And the word that you said, that you keep on asking yourself, that like I don't belong here. What am I doing here? And all these things. Thinking that you're being, like you're going to be somewhere where you're not supposed to be. That question, I used to have that question a lot when I was 7 or 8 years old. And it's when something that happened that somebody is devious to me. And I was questioning it. And it reached into a point, I realized that I'm living in a world where I'm not supposed to be. And I always was asking that question. I'm not supposed to be here, Lord. Take me, because I don't think I could go through life with this type of behaviors that other people are putting into me, because at the time, I knew that my heart was true and I wanted everything that was good for everybody. And how come I'm not getting the reciprocity?
Well, what I can say to you is that the lesson, this is your innocence. We're talking about your innocence. And the lesson here is that life is not fair.
Yes.
Okay? And if you're here on earth, you got to realize that not everybody is like you. And yet again, going back to tying this back to what I was saying before, I am still going to exist in my peace. I'm still going to try to be true. And I'm still going to live my life authentically. I'm not saying 100%, but I will do my best to reach 100% every day. So
that's what I choose to do.
Yes.
I chose to do that.
And again, I may not be successful. Maybe there are days I'm at 75% or 80%. There are days I'm at 90%. There are days where I maybe at 65%. But I try to exist in that space. And again, because of all of the information that's swirling around, it's very easy, particularly on mass media and news outlet, to let the toxicity and the poison enter without you even thinking about it. Because there's a lot of stuff that are in mass media that are completely toxic. And again, they're generating fear, they are demonizing a very specific group, and they are actually asking you to go out in the street and start fighting. Not directly, but indirectly. And this is where mental mastery comes in. When you begin to analyze it, are these things happening right now? If they're off, you're off. You're not gonna own me. Because enough of that information bombarding me, I will be just like these people that I'm mentioning that I have seen change. And rapidly, in a matter of months.
Pierre, I have a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering, because with respect to the mass media and being charged, I feel like I'm in a better space just because you've said it so many times to me and to us. But I also I'm curious to give you an example, like these tragic events usually involve death and grief, right? So I'm also finding that even though I'm neutral in my perceptions and my mental state, they still trigger other feelings in me. They might trigger grief, or they might trigger something else. And those are kind of a little harder to see at first.
Mm-hmm.
unless something happens that would guide you to it. And at this point, to me, it seems more challenging than the political issues, for example.
Yeah, because everyone on the planet right now is experiencing grief, loss and grief. Everyone is experiencing it.
Right, and that's gonna be continuing.
You know, if 8 billion people is experiencing it, even if you were in a cave, you would feel it. You're part of the group body. You're human too. So you're going to experience it. You're going to feel a sense of loss and grief, loss of mobility, loss of friends and family member, loss of financial ease, opportunity. You're going to experience a sense of like vulnerability related to your shelter, to your food source, to even your safety. Given the fact that we have all these catastrophic storm, everybody's worried. Is the power going to go out? Is this going to happen? What am I supposed to do? Should I bring food in the house? Like everyone is having that conversation. And this is not just here, it's all across the planet.
But to that extent, as long as we look at the root cause, we work on the root cause in us, the weakness, and then archangels, while we're doing that, in the meantime, they can help as well, because they can help with any archon infection, right?
Yes. Okay. Why don't we go deeper? Okay, since you brought it up, let's go even deeper. For me, when I connected to my grief and my sense of loss and survival, and it dropped down into survival, because I was not afraid for me per se, but this idea of surviving and how the survival connected to me was very specific. I had a mother that was overprotective. We couldn't go camping. We couldn't go anywhere, travel anywhere. We had to be around her skirt. She was trying to protect us because we grew up in Voodoo Island, where everyone, you couldn't eat from other people. Everyone was trying to poison you, hurt you, or destroy you. So this was huge for me. That from the survival that's in my core that connects to the 3D is not a single axis. It's more like the multiple roots that feeds the same trunk. There were multiple tentacles that were all, I forgot, I wrote them down, but I forgot right on top of my head now. There were 6 different things that were feeding it. And all of it laced together to create one thing we call survival. But had this not happened to me, I would have never identified these 6 things. So thank you, grief. Thank you, loss, because now I know what I'm dealing with. And I can correct each one of them one by one.
So you still have to address
of course
each one of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. The paranoia, the from my mother. You know, my mother lives in me. That paranoia is in me. I have it. The other thing is the culture that I grew up in, which is the voodoo culture, which is you don't trust no one. No one. No one is your friend. Everybody is a potential enemy. And how can you go through life like this? Constantly scanning and searching for malevolent actions and untrusting of everyone. You see what I'm saying? It's very deep. It was so deep inside of me.
Yeah, that's why there was a reason why I asked, because I think I have that too. And I'm not from Voodoo Island, but I'm, for example, in my bloodline, there was connection with the World War II, for example.
Right.
Or some other, you know.
Yep.
fear-based,
Yep.
where you lived maybe in fear for years, right?
Yes. Yep.
And they created, because
Yep.
certainly with the wars and everything else,
Yep.
you could have been captured, arrested, killed at any moment,
Yep.
any time, for no reason, for any reason.
Yep.
It's kind of same idea, right?
Yep. Yep.
Because
And you brought it up. The third thing I'm starting to remember now, the epigenetic memories of my ancestors.
right.
You know, I'm as a Black man, 400 years of slavery, of loss of control, 400 years of being sold, bought, and human trafficking. Deep, deep inside. So I'm telling you, I went very, very deep.
Mm-hmm.
And it revealed that these things are there and they're contributing. When I'm saying survival is a conglomerate of multiple things for me.
Right. And these kind of, because I'm noticing that too, when I'm usually querying for these fears, I find they kind of, these things kind of like, they show up together.
Yeah.
And there is always the epigenetic part that shows up too.
Yeah.
Sometimes less, sometimes more. But I was wondering, like, let's say I find some sort of survival, let's say, a fear for my life, right? And I see there's something epigenetic connected to as well. Do I need to do the epigenetic stuff separately, or as I
did each one of them separately. I surrendered each one of them. I went into the vulnerability, what I felt, where it was rooted in my body, how I felt it, and I did the universal breath and I released it into source and I asked source to take it away from me. I did each one of them separately.
And the epigenetic too?
As well, yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And here is the other parts that showed up for me as well. Shelter and security and food insecurity.
Oh yeah.
I grew up in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. We ate every day, but how the food came to the table was always a crisis.
Right.
There was always a worry, you know, how much money do we have? What are we going to buy? There was always that worry, always.
I know that like under communism, we had ration. There were days where they would ration food.
Yep.
And I was too young to kind of be afraid at that time, but I know my family was.
Yep.
I'm sure they were. So that would still be in me, right? And I have to address it as well.
And plus, where I was in the Caribbean, hurricanes were every year. So even though we had a house and you were always afraid of being flooded.
Right. Okay, thank you. I didn't
understand. I had to decompose this because I want you to understand what you're dealing with. And when these things are presented, it's an opportunity. Now, I know now in my core what survival is to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get to know yourself that way.
So it started first with grief, with loss, and then all of a sudden loss of control. And then before you know it, I realized coronavirus, blah, blah. It's not about the coronavirus. Coronavirus was a gift, the fear of it. Then all of a sudden it was about survival, and the survival took me to this.
Right.
What an incredible gift. Look at the splatter of things that I can remove. Look at this beautiful bouquet of things that I can get out of my system once and for all.
Right.
It's going to take me years to do, but look at it.
Oh, be done, yeah. I didn't do the epigenetic part separately, so I have to start doing that too.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Any questions or comments? All right, let's take 5-minute break and then we'll do the closing meditation. 5 minutes.
Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. I become aware of all of the fears that planetary events are agitating, inflating, and creating in me. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And become aware of all inflations, agitations, and emotional reactive sensation that the Archons are agitating in me. Find the location in your physical body or energy body where these influenced or lodged. With neutrality, alignment, and sovereignty. I see you. And I have my eyes fixed on you. I decree you're not permitted to touch me, interfere with me, or manipulate me anymore. I call forth Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Camuel. And I ask these three mighty archangels to fulfill their original command and order from God to unroot and cleanse all imprint, influence, interference, disturbance, and infections of the Archons from all of my 12 body system. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. As I become aware in my spiritual psychology of my 50% of the part that I owned, the weakness, I offer humbly to God. I surrender the attachments and the fear that I have. And I release them into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I become aware of all of the survival triggers that these external events are creating in me. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachment, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachment, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity. In the vast continents I am supported, loved, and I stand in my peace, truth, authenticity, and sovereignty. I am highly favored and blessed by infinity times infinity. I stand in spiritual rectitude and verticality, and from the roots of Amen and into the throne room of God. I am that I am. May my entire aligned consciousness ground into the very core of the earth. And let my unique vibratory signature, my peace, my truth, my authenticity, my sovereignty, be released from me. One block away from my earth location, let this radiation and entrainment radiate out to my circle of influence. Let it continue to expand and grow to a circumference that is appropriate, and let it begin to entrain others into this knowing. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Pierre,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
The archangels, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael,
Yep.
because I don't know if I heard correctly. I thought that you said Michael, Gabriel, Camuel,
No, Raphael.
Raphael. Okay, yeah, just want to verify. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. How you all feeling?
Feeling good, thank you. That was very helpful.
No problem. Okay. Anybody else? All right, so there are no comments or questions, last minute and thing that you want to share. I'm taking that you're all processing this information. I want to thank everyone on Patreon, all my supporters and subscribers who are watching this. I want to thank you. Thank you so deeply for your support. I hope this is helpful. And I'm very glad I did this because it also re-strengthened in me my understanding of the Archon, and I will be watching and monitoring myself even more. Wishing you all a blessed week, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Pierre. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.